Cool. Hey, if you've looked on Canvas, it just started going live. I started finalizing things this week. So I'll do the weekly walkthrough after class and I'll post that as well as the chapter. There's going to be, I'll go through what's there is and what there will be here in just a second. So we'll talk about that. But before we do that, anything from last week that you want to talk about, ask questions about? Any amazing classroom experiences that are worth sharing, whether they were amazing because they were good or amazing because they were terrible? No. Is anyone feeling like that slump of like, okay, we're past the beginning and we're not quite to the middle of the semester yet? Yeah, I feel like it came a lot quicker, like in the semester than normal, but that's because our situations are not normal. Cool. I asked a question earlier. How many of you, because of the forced nature of taking classes online, would be more likely to take an online class in the future? No. How many of you like never again if I don't have to? Most of you? Yeah. Is anyone regretting like being enrolled in school this semester? Kind of like I just want to get it done and yeah. Yeah. I don't know what the university's doing, but just judging by what I've been seeing on statistics and all that, I would be surprised, very surprised if we're back in person in the spring, or at least in like full capacity. Like, I don't know if you heard, but they're talking about the high flex capacity before that we went fully online. So we'll see. I don't really know what's what. So cool. So let's talk about COMM. Let's talk about communicating. That sounds fun when I say that. So hey, here's what we are going to do today. We're going to go over chapter 6 and chapter, hang on, I have it right here. I think it's chapter 5 and 6. Yeah, we're going to go over chapter 5 and 6 a little bit today. The content of the 3 chapters that you were assigned to do the quizzes for and submit the work for this today is really important, and I want to make sure that we really understand it, because this is where we start to work on our speech preparation and what that looks like. And when you start to see the grading rubrics for speeches, it's all about how you structure your speech. And so we're going to spend a little time. It might seem like recap. I'm going to try not to spend a whole lot of time repeating what the chapter says, but I will be doing that a little bit. Make sense? It's important. That's why I'm doing it. Next class, we will go back and we'll kind of cover chapter 9, which is organizing the body of the speech. But I'm going to work on making that more of a workshop class where you'll have something that you can work with. Again, that's speech structure. Some of the highest graded or the highest graded activities in this class are speeches, and how you structure them is crucial. So I want to make sure you understand it and it's working for you. So today we'll do 5 and 6. On Wednesday, we'll do chapter 9. The other thing that let me just go through what's on Canvas right now. So I will put the walkthrough up after class. I'll film that and get that up for you. So if you need to refer back, you can. I've got the Zoom recordings up as they go. You're going to have an assignment due on Friday at 10:15, so the time class would normally end. I do that on purpose because if you wanted to meet during that class time or work during that class time, it's already time that you've, at least at one point, budgeted for class. That assignment is to meet with your speech partner. So I emailed you all, and it's where I want you to spend at least 30 minutes either on the phone or video conference with that person and get to know them. And then by 10:15 on Friday, I want you to email me, or not email me, but submit to Canvas 2 to 5 things you learned about your speech partner that you think would be excellent main points for your introductory speech on them. So it's helping you to prepare for that speech, if that makes sense. And so between now and 10:15 Friday, 15 a.m. on Friday, I want you to figure out a time to either on the phone or face-to-face via video chat, unless you're somehow in the area and you want to hang out. meet with your speech partner. If you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to do it, I did include like 100 icebreaker questions that you could go through just to kind of help get through the awkward phase of getting to know a stranger online. Although I imagine it's less awkward for you than the classes I taught like 5-6 years ago to meet strangers online. But because your whole lives are like online. How many of you on TikTok? How many of you don't want to admit that you're on TikTok? No. I tried watching it. I mean, I have an account and all that. My brain explodes. So that's going to be due Friday. You're also going to have 2 chapter assignments for due on Monday. It's going to be chapter 10 and 11. Chapter 10 is basically you're going to write out a speech introduction. So after you read chapter 10, it talks about speech introductions. You're going to pick any topic you want and you're going to write out an introduction. It's not a very labor intensive thing. It's going to take you hopefully 15-20 minutes after you read the chapter, because you're going to know exactly how to formulate one, how to order it, structure it, and then you write it out. You can pick any topic you want. You could even start working on a introduction for your introductory speech. So if you wanted to use it for your classmate speech and take what you learn and kind of formulate something, you could. If you're not quite there yet, you don't have to. So if you want to like work ahead and do it that way, does that make sense? Because what I'll do is I'll just read these introductions and make sure that you're getting the 4 key points, that it makes sense, it's smooth, it flows, and then we'll go from there. Chapter 11, assignment is to be determined. Are you guys, you like the quiz? Are they okay? Okay. Are they stressing you out, or are you doing okay with them? Like they're not too, I'm trying not to make them hard. I'm just trying to make them like a benchmark that you've been reading. Okay. So I might make chapter 11 a quiz, because I know that's a little bit easier for some of you, especially time-wise, because you read and then you kind of like check the boxes. You don't have to read and then think, especially if I'm giving you the interview and all that. So I'll likely make it a quiz. I'll figure that out within an hour or so after class ending. And then I also have posted the introductory speech guidelines with the grading rubric. It's worth 35 points. When you have a chance to open up the grading rubric, you'll see where every point goes. And you'll see a lot of times it says 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, whatever that looks like. That means if you see the number next to it, there are 5 points possible, or whatever the highest number is. And if you ace that area, you get all 5 points. If you're struggling in that area, you'll probably, get less, or you will get less. It's just, that's how I grade it. So if you want to look that over and then shoot any questions my way, please do that. So that's kind of what you can expect from now until next Monday. So any questions on any of that? Sorry, my dog's going nuts. I'm trying to see what's going on. Cool. Is anyone excited to be in public communication today? A couple people. Yeah, we know who wants the A now. Okay. Cool. There's one other announcement I wanted to make. I put it on my nifty little Post-it. I told you in the beginning that for the most part, our classes will just be on Monday and Wednesday, and I try to give you notice before we do a Friday class. I want you to plan for class on Friday, October 9th. So Friday, October 9th, that's the week we will be delivering our introductory speeches. So we'll have speeches that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so just put that on your, if for some reason you have like a work schedule and you've like said, I can commit to every Friday because my PubComm teacher said I don't have to be online, shoot me an email or message in Canvas and we can talk about that, or a text, whatever. But plan on October 9th. So we'll have speeches the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th of October for the introductory speeches. And by doing that, that'll allow us to get it done in 1 week and then move on from there, rather than stretching it out to 2 weeks. Which, yeah, any questions? Cool. Anyone concerned with the 9th being a class day? Hopefully not, but I know that some people have other lives. Hi, person in Cameron's background. Nice to see you. She should come and introduce herself to the class. Make her pay for her.
If you want her to, she will.
Yeah. Hi, what's your name?
Say hi. What's your name? Ava. She said Ava.
How old are you?
How old are you, Ava?
6.
She's 6.
Ava, what's your best joke?
What's your best joke? Do you have a best joke?
How do you make a toilet paper laugh?
How?
Put a little boogie in there.
So silly. So
Okay.
funny, obviously.
And who is Ava to you?
She is one of the girls that I nanny.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I told you guys my boys totally like came in with their Halloween costumes the other day when I was teaching, and so I had Boba Fett and a flame trooper, just like, and the dog. All three of them came in, so they had to do their introductions. So cool. Does Ava get to do school online too?
Yep.
Fun. So you not only go ahead.
6-year-old online is tough.
Yeah.
Can't
So you're a
focus.
student online, and then you're trying to manage them being online.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least you don't have to teach online. Okay, cool. Well, let's get started. Let me go over the audience commercials that I showed you. So when we want to get to know our audience, I got to grab my book, it's stuck. When we go over audience, we broke it down into knowing your audience. It's important to know your audience. Why? Maddie, tell me why it's important to know your audience.
Well, it's important to know your audience so that you can actually get like business by targeting to their like their wants, their needs, and to the like social context in which your audience is in.
And so thank you. Let's see, Kayla, I want you to answer this one. So we're going to give a speech on why it's important to vote in a presidential election. You're going to give that speech to 18 to 30-year-olds. How will that be different if you're going to give that speech to elementary age students?
With elementary students, you're going to be using like more juvenile language and like it's going to be a lot less complex than the speech to the 18 to 30-year-olds, and you're going to use like simple language. You're going to like, add a lot more humor and like use a lot more visual aids and stuff. So you're going to like kidify the speech if you were to do it to the like kids than you were to do the adults.
Okay. So Nathan, if you're going to explain to 18 to 30-year-olds Duffy, don't laugh, I'll come after you next. Nathan, if you're going to explain to 18 to 30-year-olds, or let's just say adults, the party system, and yes, we have more than 2 parties, but how would you explain the party system to 18 to 30-year-olds in a speech?
I try to speak in like relatable language and just like something that they're gonna understand. I wouldn't try to like impress them with big words or anything, but just talk like, I don't know, just talk in the way that I think they understand.
So give me an example. And if you need Duffy to help you out with this, that's fine. But how would you explain to me that there's different parties and what it means to be a part of a party or a member of a party?
I don't know, probably just like, I don't know, I just feel like I just explain it just like how, the way that I know it. Like I wouldn't try to think of like a different, like tricky way. Like with kids, you have to like dumb it down or something like that. They use different words, but I would just try to explain it like normal.
Okay. So Megan, chime in there. How would you explain it to 18 to 30-year-olds? Like, what would it look like? What language would you use? Explain it to us.
So what I do is I do like the introduction, and then I split it into 2 different sections, one describing one party and then the other. And then how like they relate. I don't know.
Okay. So you would say, here are the 2 parties. What would you say about those 2 parties? Like, what would you say? Like, why do parties matter? What are parties? Like, how would you address those? Shelby, why don't you jump in, see if you can help?
I would describe what the parties are and then split it into 2 and then describe what this party wants, what their goal is, what this party wants, what their goal is, and then how they're similar in a way, and then obviously how they're different.
Okay. Now, Taylor, taking that concept for the adults, how would you translate it to telling Ava about the party system?
to use like
Wait.
metaphors.
Oh, there you are.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, just to like for little kids, just to use metaphors, not make it too like I guess what like similar to what Nathan said, like too serious. So.
Okay. Maggie, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think like for kids, you could do stuff that they relate to, like kind of explain them in almost a storybook way, or like someone said previously, use a lot of visual aids because they don't really understand, like they're still learning the words and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. So I have a bunch of nephews and nieces, and like if they were to come over here, well, they're all pretty sophisticated eaters. That's just my family. I think I might have shared. If I have, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat it. But our 4-year-old has a play kitchen in our kitchen, and he made something, and he went to his mom. Hey, mom, I made you this, and I added this for texture. Like, so I have corrupted our children, and like, it's not like food is an experience. So there's textures to it, there's aromas to it, there's just it's a whole like how do you take it in? But most kids don't think that way. And to where my nephews and nieces, when they're younger coming over, I could go buy dino nuggets, tater tots, mac and cheese, and like that's a gourmet meal, right? To like a 5-year-old, that's probably gourmet. But as you get older, you're like, no, I want that like real chicken breast. I want the roasted corn, the asparagus that has sea salt on it. Like you start to change, your palate changes, but also that level of what you want and expect. So it's important to know your audience, because as you deliver speeches and as you talk to people, you need to know what language you should be using. And so your book talked about age being one of the primary things. It talked about gender. Gender and sexual orientation are kind of grouped together. So one of the things that I do a lot, and I'm really, really trying to work on, is I'll say, hey guys, or how's it going, guys? And you probably have heard me. Now you're going to not forget that. And I have to remember that's not, even though that's more casual and how I grew up, that was more okay. Now it's not, especially in a class of 19 women to go, hey guys, it's kind of like, okay, like, let's rethink that. But if I'm like, well, hey girls, I mean, I think the guys in the class would be okay with it, but it would be weird. So it's important to be aware of gender and sexual orientation. Even though a lot of you in this class may come from a Christian background, you may have a specific stance, opinion on gender and sexual orientation, that doesn't mean that you are excluded from being aware of this in your audience and your ethical speaking. Does that make sense? Okay. Religion is also a big thing. In this class, I try to do my best to recognize that we are a faith-based institution, that this is a Christian university, whatever Christian university means, but that means that there are principles, there are values that we take from the biblical text and apply to how we live and how we educate and how we learn. But I also recognize that not everyone in this class is Christian, identifies as Christian, or even if you all say you're Christian, if there was a spectrum of like super highly religious Christian and I'm trying to figure this out, you're all over that spectrum. You're not the same. So it's important to realize where your audience stands in that. Just hopefully it's refreshing. And this is really important to know. It's also important to know when you're giving a speech, be aware of your audience. Be aware that your background, the way you grew up, the way you were trained to see the world, is probably different than everyone else in this room. There might be more similarities with some people than not, but how many of you had or have cheap parents? Like they will cut corners, not cut corners, but they're like, nah, we're going to do this instead. And maybe not one ply cheap, but like, you know, they don't go buy a new car, you know, right? So if you have that experience, then the next question would be, well, why are they cheap? Are they cheap because they don't have money, or are they cheap because they are cautious with money and are worried about money? So you have to ask those questions. But we want to be aware that everyone in your audience has a different background, a different upbringing. And the other thing is group membership. You don't want to go and give a speech about how, you know, guns should be made illegal when the majority of the people in your audience are members of the NRA, the National Rifle Association. That probably won't go well, and you'll probably be confronted after that. And so you got to be, that's the most extreme example I can present. I mean, there's more, I'm sure, but like, you want to be aware who these group members are, you know, and in Christian circles, if you wanted to give a speech, we'll just talk about the biggest elephant in the world on the presidential election. And say you're in a Christian circle, a lot of people will assume, oh, you're Christian, you're Republican, and therefore you are voting for Trump. And so you have to be aware that when you do speak, that your audience they might all be Christian, they might not all be Christian. And because they're Christian does not necessarily mean they're Republican or not Republican, or that even if they are Republican, it doesn't mean if they're going to vote for Trump or not for Trump. So you can't just make those connections. You have to be aware it's very general. That's extremely important now. I know for me as a pastor, we are a church that we just started like a month or so ago doing 2 socially distant outdoor gatherings a month. But for the most part, we're all online. And the staff is kind of split on where they're at. And some of the staff is like, oh no, we don't want to wear masks. We're not into masks, whatever, but we will if that's what we have to do. And there's people like me who have family health concerns and things like that. It's like, I don't want to be present at one of these outdoor activities for multiple reasons. My number one reason is, in my experience, as a pastor, people assume that my view is equal to theirs. And within our church, we're well divided between political parties. We're well divided on the mask wearing philosophies and all of that. But just because I'm Christian and I'm a pastor and I work at a church, I don't want to go to an outdoor gathering because I don't want to be greeted with a holy kiss. The number of people who are like, hey, let's go get breakfast. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready to go have someone wearing like surgical gear serve me my bacon and eggs. Like, that just seems a little weird. But they assume because I'm like them that I will respond that same way. Does this make sense? So be aware of your audience. I'm trying to tie it into like real life. I don't know if I'm succeeding. So when I want to just kind of go over those 4 commercials real quick. The Nike commercial where the kid was jogging, I asked what you thought and the age, and I agree with a lot of you. If you said it was geared for like maybe young, like teens or young adults, I agree. Like, that was motivation, but I think it's also motivation for anyone. Like, man, if that guy can get out there and he can start jogging, I can too. Like, what are my excuses? That guy is working his butt off. Like, why can't I do that? And so age, yeah, there might be a specific targeted age range, but it's for anyone. I would say probably teenager and up. If you want to, is there a sexual orientation it's geared towards? No, you could say male because it's predominantly male. It's a male narrator, but I think it can appeal to anyone. Is that a fair assessment? Okay, a class of mostly females is agreeing. And then you talked about channel. It used to be like, what channel of TV, like would you see that on? But I think one of the best places for that ad or that commercial to be is on YouTube. Like, if you're clicking on YouTube, you're not active. You're sitting on your butt. And then if that pops up, you're looking at new shoes that are about to drop. See, I'm applying what I've learned. You're looking at whatever, maybe some sports stats or anything on YouTube, and all of a sudden that pops up. You're kind of, what is this? What's this about? How many of you have cable television available to you in your home? Or satellite, cable or satellite? Okay, most of you. I haven't had it in like 7-8 years, so I don't even know what it is anymore. The second commercial was the Doritos Time Machine commercial. Now, that was a Super Bowl commercial. And what I loved about Doritos is they used to do competitions where any filmmaker can submit a commercial and they would pick their top ones to be Super Bowl ads, and they'd pay like the millions of dollars for the 30-second slot. And then the viewers would vote on which one they thought would win, and then they would get a cash prize. Believe it or not, just over 50% of the viewers for Super Bowl are female. So if you're like, who's the target audience? Well, it's male and female. And because of the kid aspect of that commercial, a lot of you said that it was geared more for kids. My family, the guys in our family will go to Vegas every year for Super Bowl because they'll have huge parties. So we'll be in a room with like anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 people, depending on what room we're in for the Super Bowl. And it's as loud as if you're at a stadium, and it's crazy, as Vegas crazy can be. But I'll tell you, when I saw that commercial displayed, everybody in the room was just laughing and cheering. And you have to think that's 21 and older in this viewing party, because kids can't be in a casino. And so I don't think it's geared for kids. I think it's geared for anyone who wants to do anything where there's snack food. It's appealing to kids. It's appealing to adults. So I just kind of keep that in mind. Let me admit. So the last one was Like a Girl. How many of you did that one hit you? Like it was powerful for you? Yeah. Yeah. So why can't Like a Girl mean something good or something better? And so that one I think is a good reminder. It's a good refresher. It's a good, back to me saying, hey guys, it's like, well, man, you throw like a girl. Well, you know what? Have you ever been to a softball game? To throw like a giant ball as hard as they can across the field, I think that takes a little bit more skill sometimes than throwing a baseball, because you have to have some grip on that thing. And then I'm also scarred because my sister, who's 5 years older than me, she was a softball player, and she played all through high school. And so all her friends were softball players, and like some with welts and bruises. I'm like, I played baseball and I didn't want a bruise on me, and they're like covered in bruises. So, yeah. So how many of you say that was predominantly geared for females? Gentlemen, did that impact you? Got a couple head nods. So it was geared for you too then. And so what you'll notice is like that kind of commercial, they film a bunch of interviews. So you can view different like cuts of it, and there'll actually be more men involved in it than not, in different cuts. Then the last one is the potty putter. How many of you Googled it after watching it? One person? There's usually one person. Okay. So that is definitely an infomercial type late night cable television. Probably around 2 a.m. is when it will like be premiere, right? When people are like, why are we still awake? And your best ideas are really terrible ideas because you're exhausted. So, but yeah, I would definitely say that's geared towards older, the dads or the granddads. But the reality is they might not be the ones to buy it. It will be their kids or their wives or whoever that would buy it for them. So in a sense, that commercial is geared for everyone too. Does that make sense? Cool. Would a kid want the potty putter in the way that it was presented in that commercial? No, they might think it's cool, but that commercial is not necessarily appealing. So you would have to redesign that commercial for that kid. And to redesign that commercial for even a woman, like, yeah, some women might like it. I know they featured some, but they could change it out. But I want you to start paying attention. If you haven't already, what was the predominant race of everyone in those commercials? So think about it if you need to go back and look. But you need to start being aware of what you're seeing and what you're taking in. Because if you're not aware of that, how are you going to be aware of how you present the information you give? And that's probably, I haven't watched it yet, but my wife just watched this documentary that I'll probably watch. And if you want, I can send the information out to you. But it talks about how the goal of everything online is to keep you online. How the goal of the apps and things on your phone is to keep you on your phone. Because the more time you spend online, the more time you spend on your phone, the more likely you are to spend money. And so what they do is they research what you're looking at. And then, so you could do this. You can go on your phone and type in, like in Google or on your computer, and type in global warming. Then go onto your social media, go anywhere, and you'll probably start to see ads or articles about global warming everywhere. It follows you. And so if you think about it, when you type in, say you typed in one of the presidential candidates, and you research them on Google, those ads, those things will track you and they'll follow you, and the ads and the articles will follow you everywhere you go. And so what that does is it starts to cloud you, and it starts to say, well, I'm getting my news, I'm getting this information, I got this from Google, but the reality is it's remembering what you like and it's trying to formulate more for you because it's a money-making machine. So if you're like, well, this is the way I see, this is the way I am, that's because that's what they want you to do. And so there's a lack of ethics in how that works. I say that because sometimes we get so caught up in what we view, what we watch, that we forget that there's more sides to it. And this is a bigger discussion than just audience. So any questions on audience, any of that? Cool. So that wraps up chapter 6. So let's go to chapter 5 really quick. I might be doing that backwards. No, let's go to chapter 5 really quick. So in chapter 5, we talked about the selecting of the topic and purpose for your speech. Does it seem more complicated than you originally thought? For a few of you. So I wanted to go through, this is crucial. So you choose a topic, any topic that you want, right? What is usually there's 2 general purposes for a speech. Do you remember what one of them is, or both of them are? Anyone? The 2 general purposes for most speeches, especially classroom speeches.
Isn't one persuasion?
Yeah, it's to persuade. What's the other one?
To inform? To
inform, yeah. And so when you're speaking to persuade, you are acting as an advocate. Hey, I want you to go out and buy Skittles. And I am basically a brand ambassador for Skittles. I'm an advocate for Skittles and why you should eat them. But if you're informing, hey, I want to tell you why Skittles are an amazing candy, you know? And so you're acting as a teacher when you're informing. I hate Skittles, so I don't know why that example came up. It's just, you know, I'm expanding my horizons. So that is the general purpose. So if you're ever asked to say, what is the general purpose of a speech? It's either to inform or to persuade. In this class, your introductory speech is to inform. Your persuasive speech is to persuade. Your TED Talk is whatever you want it to be. And then your commemorative speech is an informative speech. So your TED Talk is usually informative, but you can make it a persuasive one. But it's important to know that because you don't want to bring persuasive elements into your informative speech. And while you might have to have informative elements in your persuasive speech, you don't want to make it more informative and persuasive. You want to know the exact general purpose. So once you have your general purpose, you need to go to your specific purpose. What is it that you want your audience to know? So this is usually, it has to be a full sentence, a full phrase, not just more or, you know, like an incomplete whatever. It needs to be a statement. It's never a question. It's always a statement. I want my audience to know this. Don't be figurative, don't be ambiguous, and it needs to be limited. So your specific purpose needs to be limited. So we're going to go over an example of this, and I'm going to have you break into small groups to do this, because I want to make sure you really understand it. So general purpose, are we informing? Are we persuading? Specific purpose is, what is the brief, concise, complete sentence thing I want my audience to know? And once you have a specific purpose, you need to ask the questions like, if I do this topic, if I do this purpose for my speech, is it going to meet the requirements for the assignment? Is it going to, am I going to be able to do it effectively within the time? Sometimes what you have to do is alter it just a little bit. If you're like, I have a 2-minute speech coming up, I'm going to inform my audience about global warming. Okay, can you do that in 2 minutes? Probably not well, because there's so much to the topic of global warming. But you can make it a little bit more specific than that. Okay, then so you have the general purpose, the specific purpose. Then there's this idea of the central idea. Are you guys following, tracking? Central idea, I want you to think of your thesis statement. And so you have your paper, right? And you're writing your paper, just probably how some of you learn to write essays or papers. So you have your, I have to write a persuasive paper, I have to write a research paper, which is an informative paper on a historical figure. Okay, so I'm going to persuade. I'm going to write on the historical figure of Anne Frank. Okay, that's your specific purpose. Your central idea is your thesis. Your thesis usually involves what? Anyone? Kels, what about you? What's your central idea or your thesis statement usually involve?
It's basically like the main idea of your essay, essentially, like when you're doing essays, what the essay is going to be about. It's like a layout, basically.
Yeah, so if you have 2 to 5 main points in your essay, how many of those main points will be in your central idea or your thesis statement?
Were you asking me?
I was just asking in general. But if you want to answer, go for it.
You said 2 to 5?
If there's 2 to 5 main points in your essay or your speech, how many of them will be mentioned in your thesis statement or your central idea?
In mine, like all of them, 2 to 5.
Yeah, all of them. So your central idea is your thesis statement. So if you are giving a speech and you have however many main points you have, you are going to briefly introduce those main points in your thesis statement. So you're going to say, if I'm talking about Anne Frank, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to spend my 3 main points are who is Anne Frank, what do you need to know about her, and why is it important? Those are my 3 main points. In your thesis statement, in this speech or today, we're going to talk about who is Anne Frank, why is she important, and what difference does her life make, or why does it matter? So your introduction will have that in there. That thesis statement, that central idea will usually be the last part of your introduction that will then go into the body of your speech. Are you following? So it should be a full sentence. It shouldn't be a question, no figurative language. And what it does is it really crystallizes your specific purpose. Yes, you're going to talk about global warming. Yes, you're going to talk about a historical figure. But now you're specific, like you're going to narrow it down. I'm going to talk about this part of global warming and this part of this historical figure. Following? Is this really like a lot of review, I hope? Okay. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to list a couple of topics. I'm going to break you into groups of, we'll go with 3. And I want you to pick one of these topics and then spend a few minutes. I want you to tell me what the general purpose of your speech is going to be, the specific purpose of your speech is going to be, and what a central idea could be. So like you're just going to have to kind of create a thesis statement for it. So you'll have to make up some main points. I'll give you like 6 minutes to do that. Sound good? So here are some of your topics that you can choose. Blank makes the best pet. So you might want to write these down so that when you can debate with your group. So blank makes the best pet. The next topic that you could choose is blank is the best place to vacation. Blank is the best place to vacation. Actually, I'll just stick with those 2. Blank makes the best pet. Blank is the best place to vacation. So as a group, you need to say whether you're going to inform or you're going to persuade. You don't have to use that statement. It's just to help you pick a topic. So figure out what your general purpose is, your specific purpose, and give me a central idea. Any questions before I assign you to breakout rooms? No? Okay, so you're going to pick either what you think is the best pet or best place to vacation. You're going to create a specific purpose, a general purpose, and a central idea. When we come back, you are going to share with the group or with the class what your group kind of came up with. I'm going to put you into groups of 3, so take a minute to introduce yourselves and then go from there. I think you have about 6 minutes. Sound good? And it doesn't have to be perfect.